Everybody close your eyes. Take a deep breath and be aware of yourself and your environment in the space around you. Gently close your eyes. Shift your eye gaze to the third eye. And follow with me. Let's begin today's opening chants. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrutyormam Amrutangamayam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take us from untruth to the truth. Take us from darkness to the light. Take us from death to infinity and immortality. And let there be peace everywhere. And for today's combined journey of learning, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We seek blessings to be nourished together. We seek blessings to give our 100% commitment in the process of learning. We make commitment that let there be no competition or hatred or judgments between us or among us, and let there be peace everywhere. With these wonderful intentions, let's begin today's session. So very quickly, let's do a quick recap. So we started the day one with what is yoga, and Sri Ramji yesterday reiterated it. Yoga is not about the postures, but rather it's about restraining and calming this turbulent mind. It is Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And to be able to do that, we have to make sure that our body and our body is in the right harmonious situation. And that's where we use the asanas to make sure that our body is in the right place, to remove any conflicts or imbalances that we have in the body. And then to remove any imbalances and the impurities or the smoke that we have in the mind, we also anchor on the pranayama or the breath control. So that is, we use a combination of asanas and the breath control to be able to prepare ourselves on body and mind to be able to get into the meditation state. And the meditation is defined by Patanjali as Tatra Pratyaya Ekatanata Dhyana. When the image that is displayed in our mind to our consciousness or the divine light, the Purusha or the seer that is within us, when the image that is presented in our mind as a TV that is perceived by all other external sensory perceptions, when that image remains the same from this moment to the next moment, ekatanata, when it becomes the same from this moment to the next moment, that is the state of meditation. And meditation is something that you don't try hard, but you make it, allow it to happen. So there are many different stages on how we could actually get into meditation. Yesterday, I think Priya Aji was saying that I only do japa, but it's easier for me to chant, but it's not easy for me to meditate. What Patanjali defined the inner sadhana as 3 stages. The first one is what he called as a dharana. The first step to get into meditation is we have to have the ability to develop concentration. Dharana is intense concentration. And then the next step is dhyana. And then we get into samadhi. So this is almost like a 3-step process of how we are going to evolve to be in the complete meditative state. So dharana is how do we develop intense concentration. So in other words, instead of letting the mind have one frame be the same, what we are doing is instead of making that available with your eyes closed and make this be a calm, stable state, what Patanjali said is, can we actually use an external object to fix concentration? Like, for example, there are some techniques where there is a thing called Trataka as a Kriya. You can actually use a candle and then focus your attention on staring into the light of the candle. So those are the things when you are intensely trying to focus on one concentration, then what you're doing is you're, instead of having the mind go to different places, we are actually using one external prop and then do that. And japa is also one of the biggest tools. Like, for example, the japa is, people chant Om Namah Shivaya, or take any one of the anchor, the chant, and then you repeat it. And when you're repeating it, what you're doing is you're actually literally boring the mind. When the mind is trying to go in different places, you're actually setting it to just do the one thing repeatedly again and again and again. That's another process to tame the mind. And in fact, if you actually observe, some people actually use the necklace of the beads. That's also an artifact of the japa, where all you're doing is you're just counting the beads, 1, 2, 3. So essentially what happens is, when you're training your mind to do that same thing repeated again and again and again and doing the same mundane thing, mind eventually becomes state, or it actually allows you to go to the next phase of meditation. Have any of you tried any one of the concentration of the dharanas techniques, like japas or chanting or using the beads?
Yes, all of them.
All of them? I see. That's it. So that means it's a good one for you. It should be easier for you. So that is another thing is, some people, what I see doing is more of a counting numbers reverse. So these are all the techniques that actually help you to tame your mind from going in many different directions.
Yeah, GS, 1 second. See, that is also, I felt that is also a problem because, see, this is where I'm struggling is when I'm trying to, okay, with beads, right? So with counting, now suddenly my concentration goes from the mantra to the count.
Uh-huh.
So I said, okay, you know what? I'm using too much of logic of my brain to start counting 108 times or 1,000 times or whatever. So I switched to beads, and you're physiologically you're looking for the knot of the bead again. So my mind is two ways. One is it's trying to concentrate on something, and now from a physiological standpoint, I'm now worried about when that knot is going to come. So it becomes said, what the hell, both are not doing the same. So I said, okay, I will chant how many number of times. So I stopped using both of them as tools. Started only, chanting. Now I've stopped using both beads and the number of counts. Just
Actually, the thing is, there is an interesting philosophy. The best part is, God gave us minds for humans. The trick here is you have to use the mind to transcend the minds. That's the game. You have to use the mind. In other words, whatever works for you, logic, don't logic, you have to use it to trick your own mind. You have to transcend it, right?
yeah.
Some of us are very much left brain focused. In other words, we think everything logically. And some of them are actually more of a right brain, where they're more of emotional, where devotion comes very naturally. So for them, it's a little bit more easier. And I'll get into how you can actually use devotion as a technique explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. But the point is, I think what you're trying to do is, even though you are trying to look into the knot, what you have to intentionally focus on every moment. The moment that you are living in, that is the moment. When you get into the first beat that you're doing, your job is to move it, and then you have to chant your mantra. And then the next step is your chant mantra. Your mind is trying to rush ahead to get to the knot. Your job is actually not about 108. Your job is to be in that every beat moment and chant the mantra. That's a victory for you. I think if you set the victory to how many number of times, then you're already kind of beat the entire purpose. It's about how to live the every moment in its entire infinity. So your victory is every beat. So the beat, you have to move it, and then you have to chant it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're actually moving into the next thing. So when you are living that, you don't really know how many number of iterations that you have done. And same thing, if you actually look at the sun salutations, a lot of people say is like, I have to do 10 sets here, 10 sets here. That's actually not the point. I think that's more for the beginners, so that you establish some routine. The point is never about the number of repetitions. And in fact, if you go to some other art of living, they tell you that you have to do Ujjayi Pranayama at the stage 1 10 times, stage 2 20 times, and then you have to do all this Mudra Pranayama some number of counts. But that is a very simplistic way of approaching it. The goal is, how are you uniting with your breath? Make it the deepest, longest, so that you are observing the sensation of the breath. So is that making sense? Like when you're doing going to the knot, but rather approaching every beat as a victory milestone?
Correct. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right? So that is what we are essentially doing is, in fact, before getting into the meditation, people call that as a mindfulness. Yesterday Sri Ramji said so beautifully. This entire process, what we are doing is we stop associating ourselves with this body and this mind. So we essentially become a passive observers. We become the seer. So when the thoughts are going through it, you don't attach yourself to the thought and run with it. You just have to watch it like a TV. It's almost like you distance yourself from what's happening around you. And then it's almost like a cinema. And then you basically laugh at yourself. Oh, wow, this mind is actually thinking about a vacation in Hawaii. Or this mind is thinking about when will it be, 1 more hour when Srini goes away, or something like that, right? So when that happens, you just have to maintain a thing, and then, you just have to maintain a sense of dispassionate, but rather wonder, how is this mind is actually going? So what people say is, the first practice is disassociating yourself from the thoughts, and then just be a spectator or observer, that you become the third person. And even when Sri Ramji yesterday said, when you get hungry, you don't say, I'm hungry. You say like, my body or the body that I have is feeling hunger. Or the mind that I am now carrying with myself, it's actually allowing me to think this way. So you're essentially maintaining this, the observer or the third person point of view. So the first job is to start observing the thoughts and then maintaining that. Then the next part is, how do you then control every moment's thought into something that you want it to be? That's where the japa and the concentration comes in. And that's where pranayama comes in. In fact, there was a Yoga Sutra, right? Dharana sacha yogyata manasaha. What you're doing is, when you are engaging the breath is actually your link to the brain. Literally, the breath is literally the link to the brain. So when you are doing something like Ujjayi, the longer controlled exaggeration to the number of counts, you don't really think about anything else. Your attention is shifted to the brain. That is also, the breath is your concentration. Dharana. And then when you train your mind to live in every moment with what you're trying to do, your chant or your movement, then the next step is, then the meditation starts happening. Then what happens is, then you can actually fix your attention to some object that you want, right? Could be anything positive, which is divine or something. And then, you get into meditation. So the number of moments where the image becomes the same thing. So the interesting thing is, meditation is not static. Meditation is actually a continuous flow of images where the image stays the same. It's almost like a laminar flow. If there is an oil is pouring down, or a simple thing, it's flowing, but when you look laterally, it looks like it's still image. When your mind becomes this continuous flow of images where the frame remains the same. You don't know whether it's one still image or it's a continuous flow, but meditation is a dynamic, continuous flow state. And when you are in that flow state, what Patanjali defined is any action that you do in that state of meditation will be pure, and it will not accumulate any residue, any karma. In fact, there is a Yoga Sutra that says, Tatra Dhyanajam Anashayam. What it means is, in that state of meditation, whatever the action that you do, then it will be devoid of any residue, any karma. And then when you do that meditation so intensely, the next step is you completely forget yourself. You become immersed in the pursuit of that the object of the meditation that you're doing. And that essentially, then you become that. That is what is called samadhi. The samadhi is the total immersion. And in fact, immersion, and then we totally forget about ourselves. Sometimes we even get that. Is that when we go to a movie, sometimes we get fully engrossed in the movie. And that's also immersion, but that's not samadhi, because you're not willingly, consciously doing it. You're actually trapped by the other stuff. So it's actually, magic or a trick. Whereas when the meditation happens, and when you suddenly lose your own sense of yourself, and then you become you fully immerse in the pursuit of that meditation, then that becomes samadhi. And this is where the real trick happens. Trayam ekatva samyama. What it actually means is, when you do all these three pieces together, the intense concentration and meditation and the total immersion and the pursuit of the object, then you become one. That's what is called samyama. And samyama means total control. And with samyama, you can then gain control on anything in this universe. And that is path to excellence, and that is path to getting control. And in fact, Patanjali lays out all the rules. If you do samyama on moon, you get this power. If you do samyama on sun, you get this power. You get samyama on, the navel chakra, you get this power. You get, there is like so many powers. And the way I interpret it is, perhaps the age-old saints, when they were doing this tapas, intense concentration and meditation and dhyana, that's how they actually conquered the universe. In other words, they were able to traverse these universes and the galaxies, and they had control over on other people's minds and thoughts. But when you are in that samyama, the only way you can get there is when you have to lose your sense of art. If you're doing it for selfish needs, then you never get there. You will only get there when you obliterate your sense of I-ness, my body, my people, my family. Only then the samyama happens. And then you get the powers. And then some people use those powers for wrong reasons. I forget that. I mean, that's what we used to hear in the stories about the Ramayana and Ravan and all that stuff, where they get the state of samyama and they get some powers, and then they use the powers in the wrong way. Right? So that's kind of how I understood it. But I think my recommendation to all of you is like what Sriramji explained yesterday. Don't get discouraged. The fact that you are actually putting intense effort, like the tapas, is actually that you are heading in the right direction. And then don't be judged by the outcomes. Don't try to rush to the outcomes. Your entire job is to live every moment the infinite that it can be. Your only job is to be truthful to that moment and see if you can be in that meditative state or the dharana state. And then take every moment as it comes. And then automatically meditation happens. The other technique that I also talked about, which actually has been helping so much, and if you guys have done Isha inner engineering course, where they talk about Shambhavi Mudra, where Shambhavi Mudra, you try to have a deep focus on, and I've not done the Shambhavi Mudra myself, inner engineering, but based on what my understanding, I think you try to focus more your attention on the Ajna chakra to light your Jyotishmati, which is the light of awareness. when you do that, when we are doing the practice where we completely exhale and you hold the breath and shift your attention to this Ajna Chakra, because you're holding the breath and you are literally in intense concentration, shifting the force, that will also helps you to get into that meditation phase, even for however long. And then eventually what happens is you continue that intense focus on the Ajna Chakra, and then then start observing the light of awareness or any image that you want, and then gradually ease into regular breathing. So that's all I wanted to quickly cover: dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, and then eventually get into samyama. And then samyama is the secret to excellence, and then gaining control. In fact, without knowing yoga, perhaps all these Olympic athletics or people who are being successful, intense entrepreneurs, that's what they do. Whenever they're pursuing something, they have intense concentration, very meditation. They probably don't even know anything. And then they literally lose themselves in the sport or something that they are trying to accomplish. And we have seen that. The people who give that intense concentration, and they're not even focused for an outcome. They just focus on, I remember listening to some Sachin Tendulkar interviews where he said, how do you score this many runs? His entire focus is, I just focus on the one ball at a time. It's like one moment at a time. Right? It's not about scoring 300 or 200 or 100, but it's about one ball at a time. And to me, that is meditation. Any questions, comments? Should we do some yoga?
Yes.
Yep. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, everybody please come to the top of the mat.